This is called the tiny garden. Andrew loved plants, but the fancy gardens on his block overwhelmed him. Too big, too tall, too much. So he dug a small rectangle in the grass. "Is that a garden?" asked a neighbor. "It needs to be much bigger." "This will be a tiny garden," said Andrew. "That is far too small for a garden." "This will be a tiny garden," said Andrew. So he dug a small rectangle in the grass. "Is that a garden?" asked a neighbor. "It needs to be much bigger." Whoops. Are we rereading? Hold on. Oh, there we go. The smell of soil, rich with possibilities, tickled Andrew's nose. He carefully added good things to the dirt. The earth wrapped his fingers in cool and snuck beneath his fingernails. Then Andrew planted seeds, tucking them in with soft pats. He watered, oh so gently, and he waited. And watered, and waited. Before too long, a tiny shoot sprang up, then another and another. See the dog noticing the shoots? And soon there was a tiny, perfect jewel box of a garden in front of Andrew's house. Soft, tiny leaves, bright, tiny colors, fresh, tiny smells, and tiny wind whispers when a breeze traveled through. But what is the point? You can't walk in it, you can't sit in it, you can barely see it. It's a tiny garden, Andrew said. He waited some more. A tiny moth, exhausted by the wideness of the world, flew over the garden. Do you see the moth here? She couldn't believe her compound eyes. "This is what I've been waiting for, but I never even knew it," she said. She flew into the tiny garden and rested in the cool shade of a tiny leaf, relieved. Then a tiny earthworm popped his head out of the grass. "A place just right for me," he said. He wriggled into the garden and sighed with happiness. The tiniest hummingbird zipped into the garden and sipped from a perfectly sized flower. "Home," she thought, "home." Andrew watched his garden fill with small friends. This place he'd made was just right for all of them. "I still don't see the point of such a tiny garden," said the neighbor. Andrew watched as a tiny ladybug glided past the man and into the garden. "That's okay," Andrew said, as the ladybug gracefully landed on a tiny leaf. "I do." The end.
First, I'd like to tell you a little story adapted from a story in Lamp in Every Corner, or UU Storybook, by Janine K. Grossmeyer. In the city of Prague, in the land of Czechoslovakia, in the year of 1923, there was a church. But the building didn't look like a church. It had no bells, no spires, no stained glass windows. It had no organ to make beautiful music. It didn't even have a piano. It had no carvings of wood or statues of stone. It had no candles or chalices. It had no flowers. The church did have some things. It had 4 walls and a ceiling and a floor. It had a door and a few windows. It had some wooden chairs. But that was all, plain and simple. Except the church also had people who came to it every Sunday. It had a minister, and his name was Norbert Chapek. He had been the minister at the Plain and Simple Church for 2 years. Every Sunday, Minister Chapek went to church, and he spoke to the people while they listened, sitting quietly and still in those hard wooden chairs. When he was done speaking, the people talked a little bit among themselves, and then they went home, and that was all. No music, no candles, no food, not even coffee or donuts. Springtime came to the city of Prague, and Norbert Chapek went out for a stroll, as many of us do here in Marin. The rains had come, the birds were singing, and the flowers were blooming all over the land. The world was beautiful. Then an idea came to him, simple and clear, plain as day. The next Sunday, he asked all the people in the church to bring a flower or a budding branch or even a twig. Each person was to bring one. What kind, they asked. What color? What size? You choose, he said. Each of you choose what you like. And so, on the next Sunday, which was the first day of summer, the people came with flowers of all different colors and sizes and kinds. There were yellow daisies and red roses. There were white lilies and blue asters, dark-eyed pansies and light green leaves, pink and purple, orange and gold. There were all those colors and more. Flowers filled all the vases, and the church wasn't so plain and simple anymore. Norbert Chapek spoke to the people while they listened, sitting quietly and still in those hard wooden chairs. These flowers are like ourselves, he said, different colors and different shapes and different sizes, each needing different kinds of care, but each beautiful, each important and special in its own way. When he was done speaking, the people talked a little bit among themselves, and then they each chose a different flower from the vases before they went home, sharing in community, beauty, and love. Our story, though, doesn't stop here. This story, although simple, highlights something I'd like us to hold in our hearts. This sacred act of communing with one another through the unique and individual beauty of each different flower did not emerge from a time of wealth and plenty. It was created within a world still recovering from the First World War. Norbert Chapek and his flower communion, even in its earliest days, was encouraging us all to find the joy in the darkness, find the beauty in one another. Even then, he was planting seeds of resilience. And then, in the midst of the Second World War, in the spring of 1939, he was offered asylum and a ministerial position in the United States. He politely declined their offer, asserting that he could not leave his people at this moment, no matter what sufferings might come. And if you know his story, sufferings did come. Our Reverend Chapek did not stop there. He and his wife traveled to the United States, and in 1940, they shared their flower communion with the Unitarian Church of Cambridge, Massachusetts, which gained in popularity and is now celebrated in most UU congregations in the world. And less than a year later, in March 1941, he was arrested and put on trial from the Nazis, being seen as a threat by the Nazi leadership for his belief in the beauty and dignity inherent in each human being. July 5th, 1942, Norbert Chapek arrived in Dachau, and according to Harvard Square Library, his work was not over when the prison doors closed on him. Like the alchemists of ancient Prague who sought to turn base metals into gold, So he took pain, frustration, and defeat, and fashioned out of them a shining glory. Surviving fellow prisoners tell in glowing words of the magnificence of his witness to the truths he proclaimed. By what he said and what he was, he fortified and uplifted those among whom he dwelt. As one Catholic priest who was with him bore witness, he achieved his greatest ministry there among the despairing who lived in the very shadow of death. Without him, we could not have endured. Seeds of resilience and love in the harshest of places. He didn't live through the end of the war, being sent to his final resting place on October 12, 1942. His seeds of resilience and love are still being sown over 100 years after the Flower Communion began. In closing, I'll leave you with these words written by Norbert Čapek on March 31st, 1942, while he was still in Dachau the day before his final trial. It is worthwhile to live and fight courageously for sacred ideals. Oh, blow, ye evil winds, into my body's fire. My soul, you'll never unravel. Even though disappointed 1,000 times, or fallen in the fight, and everything would worthless seem, I have lived amidst eternity. Be grateful, my soul. My life was worth living. He who was pressed from all sides but remained victorious in spirit is welcomed into the choir of heroes. He who overcame the fetters, giving wing to the mind, is entering into the golden age of the victorious. And for our flower communion today, we'll start with Norbert Čapek's consecration of the flowers. You can feel free to close your eyes if you'd like, or stay right here with us. Infinite Spirit of life, we ask thy blessing on these, thy messengers of fellowship and love. May they remind us, amidst diversities of knowledge and of gifts, to be one in desire and affection and devotion to thy holy will. May they also remind us of the value of comradeship, of doing and sharing alike. May we cherish friendship as one of thy most precious gifts. May we not let awareness of another's talents discourage us or sully our relationship, but may we realize that whatever we can do, great or small, the efforts of all of us are needed to do thy work. It is now time for us to share in the flower communion. I ask that each of you in turn approach the communion vase and that you do so quietly, reverently, with a sense of how important it is for each of us to address our world and one another with gentleness, justice, and love. I ask that you each select a flower different from the one you brought that particularly appeals to you. As you take your chosen flower, noting its particular shape and beauty, please remember to handle it carefully. It is a gift that someone else has brought to you. It represents that person's unique humanity and therefore deserves your kindest touch. Let us share in this Unitarian Universalist ritual of oneness and love.